The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, spinning slowly around a dying star. Inside, representatives from 847 species sat in their assigned seats. The chamber was enormous, with rows upon rows of chairs designed for every body type imaginable. Some seats held creatures with wings, others held beings made of liquid or light. But one seat, positioned near the center where everyone could see it, remained empty. It had been empty for 1,247 years. Hannah stood at the observation window of the human embassy station, staring at the council chamber in the distance. She was 28 years old and had arrived at Waypoint 7 only 3 weeks ago. Her assignment was simple: monitor council proceedings and file reports back to Earth. It should have been boring work, but something about that empty seat bothered her. "You're thinking about it again," said a voice behind her. She turned to see Ambassador Dae-jung walking into the observation room. He was in his mid-40s with gray streaks in his black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. He carried 2 cups of coffee and offered one to her. "The seat," Hannah said. "Why is it empty? We've been part of the council for over 1,000 years, but we never send anyone to actually sit in it." Dae-jung sipped his coffee slowly. "That's a complicated question. Is it classified?" "No, just complicated." He joined her at the window. "The seat is there. We have voting rights. We receive all council communications, but we choose not to attend in person." "That doesn't make sense," Hannah said. "Every other species sends representatives, even the ones who live in methane atmospheres or exist as energy beings. They find a way. Why don't we?" Dae-jung was quiet for a long moment. "Because they prefer it that way." Before Hannah could ask what he meant, an alarm chimed throughout the station. Both of them looked at their communication devices. A priority message flashed across the screens. "Emergency council session," Dae-jung read aloud. His face went pale. "The Mecron Collective is mobilizing." They rushed to the communication center. Other human staff members were already gathered around the main display screen, watching a live feed from the council chamber. The insectoid speaker, Velkara, stood at the central podium. Her translated voice echoed through the speakers. "The Mecron Collective has issued an ultimatum," she announced. "They demand control of 3 border systems. If we refuse, they will take them by force. Their fleet is already moving into position." The council chamber erupted in panicked voices. Hannah watched as representatives from hundreds of species began talking at once. Some demanded military action. Others called for negotiation. A few simply looked terrified. "How big is their fleet?" asked a crystalline counselor named Cormath. A tactical display appeared above the chamber, showing the Mecron formation. Hannah felt her stomach drop. There were thousands of ships arranged in perfect battle formation. It was an invasion force. "We must vote on a response," Velkara said. "All in favor of military intervention?" Less than a third of the council raised their voting devices. "All in favor of territorial concession?" Another third voted yes. "All in favor of continued negotiation?" The final third voted, leaving the council completely deadlocked. Velkara's insect face seemed to sag with exhaustion. She was old, ancient even by galactic standards. Her species lived for tens of thousands of years, and she had served on the council for 8 millennia. She had seen things that most species had forgotten. "Perhaps," said a young reptilian counselor named Pren, "we should ask Terra for their opinion." The chamber went silent. Completely, utterly silent. Hannah frowned. Why did everyone stop talking? Dae-jung didn't answer. He was staring at the screen with an expression she couldn't read. Velkara spoke carefully. "Terra's seat is available, but they choose not to participate in council debates." "But this is a crisis," Pren insisted. "Surely they would want to vote on this matter. The Mecrons threaten us all." "Terra votes remotely," Cormath said quickly. His crystalline body was shimmering with what looked like nervousness. "We don't need to summon them physically. I'm just saying," Pren continued, "if Terra sent a representative, perhaps their perspective would help us reach consensus. They're known for being decisive." Several older counselors made alarmed sounds. One of them, a floating jellyfish-like being, actually fled the chamber. Hannah turned to Dae-jung. "What's going on? Why is everyone acting so strange?" "Drop it, Hannah," he said quietly. "But that's an order." She had never heard him use that tone before. It wasn't angry exactly. It was something else. Something that sounded almost like fear. The council session continued for another 2 hours, but they couldn't reach an agreement. Finally, Velkara announced that they would reconvene the next day. The chamber emptied slowly, with representatives clustering in small groups, talking in hushed voices. Hana returned to her quarters, but she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the empty seat and the way everyone had reacted when Pren suggested filling it. There was a story here, something important that she didn't understand. She pulled up the embassy's database and began searching. Most files about Terra's council membership were routine. Trade agreements, technology exchanges, voting records sent remotely. Nothing interesting. But then she found something odd. A file marked Historical Context Restricted Access Level 3. Hana had Level 2 clearance. She wasn't supposed to see this file. But whoever had classified it hadn't encrypted it very well. Within minutes, she had bypassed the basic security. The file opened. It contained records from over 1,000 years ago, from humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council. She started reading, her eyes growing wider with each page. There were psychological evaluations of humans, reports written by alien observers, analysis of human history, human warfare, human survival instincts. And there, buried in a subfile, was a document titled Protocol Omega, Recommendation for Human Integration. She was halfway through reading it when her door chimed. "It's open," she called out, not looking up from her screen. Dae-jung walked in. He saw what she was reading and sighed heavily. "I told you to drop it." "You also told me my job was to understand council dynamics," Hana said. "How can I do that if I don't know why our seat is empty?" "Because some things are better left." He stopped mid-sentence. His communication device was buzzing frantically. He looked at it and his face went even paler than before. "What is it?" "The Mecrons," he said. "They didn't wait for our answer. Their fleet just jumped into council space. They ran back to the command center. Every screen showed the same thing. Thousands of Mecron warships surrounding the council chamber. The lead ship was broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "This is Warlord Kresh of the Mecron Collective," the voice said. "We do not negotiate. We do not compromise. Surrender the 3 border systems immediately, or we will demonstrate the price of resistance." Velkara appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from inside the council chamber. Her ancient eyes looked directly at the camera, directly at the human embassy station. "Forgive me," she said softly. Then she reached down and pressed a button that Hana had never seen. Activated before, it was the signal button for Terra's empty seat, the button that called humanity to the council chamber. Dae-jung closed his eyes. "Oh no. What does that mean?" Hana demanded. "What happens now?" He looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, Ambassador Dae-jung looked truly afraid. "Now," he said quietly, "the Mecrons are going to learn why that seat stays empty." The memory came to Dae-jung unbidden, as clear as if it had happened yesterday instead of 40 years ago. He had been 8 years old, standing with his mother on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station. Ships had appeared in the sky that day, ships that didn't come from Earth. His mother, Captain Bora, had held his hand tightly as the alien vessels approached. She was a military officer, tough and scarred from the Cascade Wars. She never showed fear, but that day her hand had trembled slightly. "Are they going to hurt us?" young Dae-jung had asked. "I don't know," she had admitted, "but if they wanted us dead, we'd already be dead." That had not been comforting. The alien ships had been beautiful and terrifying at once. They moved in ways that defied physics as humanity understood it. One of them looked like a living crystal. Another seemed to be made of liquid metal. A third was so massive it blotted out the sun. A message had come through in perfect English. "We are the Galactic Council. We have come to welcome humanity into the greater community of sentient species." Earth had barely survived the Cascade. 3 decades of environmental collapse, nuclear exchanges, and resource wars had reduced humanity from 8 billion to 2 billion. They had clawed their way back through unity, sacrifice, and sheer stubbornness. The scars were still fresh. Captain Bora had been chosen to lead the first contact team because she understood survival. She didn't trust easily, and she never assumed good intentions. These were useful traits when meeting aliens for the first time. The negotiations had taken place on neutral ground, aboard a council vessel that orbited Earth's moon. Bora had brought a small team, including Dr. Ji Wan, humanity's best xenobiologist and psychologist. Jiwan was everything Bo-Ra wasn't: optimistic, trusting, eager to find common ground. "They're offering us everything," Jiwan had said, reading through the proposed treaty. "Technology, trade, protection, a seat on the council with full voting rights. Why would they be so generous?" "That's what worries me," Bo-Ra had replied. The council representatives had been friendly, even warm. They showed humanity the wonders of galactic civilization. Worlds where disease didn't exist, technology that could feed billions, ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of centuries. "You've suffered so much," said the lead ambassador, a reptilian creature named Thalquin. "You've nearly destroyed yourselves. Let us help you. Let us show you a better way." But as the weeks passed, the council representatives had begun conducting tests. They called them integration assessments. They wanted to understand human psychology, human history, human capabilities. Dr. Jiwan had administered many of these tests herself, not realizing what the results would reveal. One test had been simple: solve an impossible problem. The human subject, a young engineer named Taewan, had been placed in a sealed room with no visible exits. He was told there was a way out and that he should find it. What the council observers didn't expect was that Taewan would try for 16 hours straight without stopping. He attempted over 10,000 different solutions. He took apart the walls with his bare hands. He calculated mathematical patterns in the rivets. He even tried to hack the air circulation system using static electricity from his own body. He eventually found the exit, a hidden panel that required a complex sequence of actions. The council observers had been horrified. Most species would have given up after an hour, maybe two. The human had just kept going. "This is not normal," Thalquin had told his superiors. "This level of persistence without reward is disturbing." They conducted more tests. They studied human history, reading about wars that lasted decades, about people who survived impossible situations through sheer willpower, about humans who would rather die than surrender. "They weaponize everything," one observer had noted. "They turn splitting atoms into bombs. They turned diseases into biological warfare. They turned information into psychological weapons. They don't see tools. They see potential weapons. More concerning," another added, "is that they never stop. Their history is one long story of refusing to quit, even when quitting is the logical choice." The council had held emergency sessions. Humanity was different from any species they had encountered. Most races, once they reached a certain level of technology, became peaceful. War became too costly. Survival became too easy. Aggression faded. But humans had nearly destroyed themselves and had somehow become more unified, more determined, more dangerous in the aftermath. They had stared into the abyss of extinction and had simply refused to fall in. "What do we do?" a counselor had asked. "We can't let them join us. They're too unstable, too aggressive." "But we can't reject them either," Velkara had replied. The ancient insectoid had seen civilizations rise and fall. She understood threat assessment better than anyone. "If we turn them away, they'll see it as an insult. They'll develop their own technology, and when they come back, they won't be asking for permission." Chancellor Mord, the council leader at that time, had proposed a solution. "We invite them. We give them everything we promised. But we encourage them not to come." "How?" Thalquin had asked. "We tell them the truth. We tell them that their presence makes other species uncomfortable. We offer them a seat, but we make it clear that the seat should remain empty. We give them respect, resources, and distance." It had been a gamble, but Captain Bo-Ra had understood immediately when they explained it. "You're afraid of us," she had said flatly. "Yes," Velkara had admitted. "You survived something that would have destroyed any other species. And instead of becoming cautious, you became more dangerous. You terrify us." Bo-Ra had looked at Dr. Jiwan, at young Daejung, at the blue earth hanging in the view screen behind them. Then she had smiled, not warmly. "Good," she had said. "Fear keeps you honest." The treaty was signed. Terra received a seat on the council, positioned prominently where everyone could see it. Earth received technology, trade agreements, and access to the galactic community. In exchange, humanity agreed to maintain a light presence. They would vote remotely. They would send small diplomatic missions, but they wouldn't fill the seat. The empty seat would serve as a reminder to everyone of what lurked in the Sol system. A species too dangerous to ignore, too powerful to control, but hopefully too smart to provoke. There had been one final stipulation: added at the last moment by Velkara. She had pulled Captain Bora aside privately. "If we ever truly need you," the ancient being had said, "we will signal Terra's seat, and you will come." "Come to do what?" "Whatever is necessary," Bora had agreed. 3 times in the following 1,000 years, the signal had been sent. 3 times humanity had responded. Each time the threat had been eliminated within weeks. Each time the survivors had begged the council to never let the humans out again. Daijung had learned all of this as he grew older, as he joined the diplomatic corps, as he eventually became an ambassador. He carried his mother's understanding. Humanity was the weapon the galaxy kept locked in a case marked "break in case of emergency." And now, watching the Mechron fleet surround the council chamber, watching Velkara press the signal button, he knew the case had been broken once more. His communication device lit up with incoming orders from Earth Command. He read them quickly, his face expressionless. "What do they say?" Hana asked. Daejung looked at her. She was young, idealistic, new to all of this. She still thought humanity was just another species trying to get along with its neighbors. She didn't understand what they really were. "They say," he replied quietly, "that Admiral Kyung-Soo's fleet will arrive in 72 hours. That's impossible. The council chamber is weeks away from Earth at maximum jump speed. Not the way we jump." Hana stared at him. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, a new message came through from the council chamber. It was Warlord Kresh broadcasting to everyone. "We have detected your distress signal," the Mechron commander said, his voice full of contempt. "You call for help? From whom? We command 100 conquered systems. We field 1,000 warships. What can possibly threaten us?" Velkara's response was soft, almost sad. "You should have studied your history, Warlord. You should have asked why Terra's seat stays empty." Kresh laughed. "One species. I command the greatest fleet in this sector." "Yes," Velkara said, "you do. But they're coming anyway." Daejung turned away from the screen. He had seen this before, had studied the records from the previous 3 interventions. He knew what was coming. "What happens now?" Hana asked. "Now," he said, "we pray that the Mechrons are smart enough to run." The Mechron fleet held position around the council chamber like a metal noose. Warlord Kresh sat in his command throne, watching the alien counselors scramble in panic on his view screens. It was almost disappointing how easily they frightened. He had conquered 40 systems in the last decade. Each time it had been the same. The locals would posture and threaten. His fleet would arrive. They would see his numbers and superior technology. They would surrender. It was efficient. "Commander," said his tactical officer, "the council has activated some kind of beacon, unknown origin." "Let them call for help," Kresh said dismissively. "Any fleet that arrives will just give us more targets." But something nagged at him. The old insect creature, the one called Velkara, hadn't looked panicked. She had looked sad. Why sad? On Waypoint 7, Hana was piecing together the truth from restricted files, historical records, and overheard conversations. The picture that emerged made her hands shake. Humanity had intervened in galactic affairs exactly 3 times in the past 12 centuries. Each intervention had been brief, brutal, and terrifying. The first had been against the Vrax Dominion, a species that had tried to enslave several minor systems. The council had debated for months. By the time they agreed to act, the Vrax had captured 3 planets. Then Terra's signal had been activated. A human fleet arrived within days. They didn't negotiate. They jumped directly into Vrax space, disabled every military installation, destroyed every warship, and left the Vrax leaders floating in escape pods with a simple message. "You have one chance to leave. Take it." The Vrax had fled their conquered worlds immediately. Terrell's second intervention had been against a religious cult called the Pure Ones. They believed biological life was sacred and had started destroying any species that used cybernetic enhancements. The council had tried diplomacy for 2 years while the Pure Ones killed billions. The human response had been more creative. They hacked into every Pure One communication system simultaneously and broadcast a simple truth. Humans had nearly wiped themselves out once. They knew exactly how to do it to others. The Pure Ones had 48 hours to surrender, or humanity would show them what extinction looked like. The Pure Ones had surrendered in 36 hours. The third intervention had been classified, even more heavily than the others. Hana could only find fragments. Something about a dimensional rift. Something about creatures that couldn't be reasoned with. Something about human soldiers going in and not coming back out, but completing the mission anyway. After that one, Velkara had given a speech to the council. Hana found the transcript buried in the archives. "We created Protocol Omega because we feared humanity's capacity for violence," Velkara had said. "We were right to fear it. But we forgot something important. That capacity for violence comes from a deeper place. It comes from a refusal to accept defeat even when defeat is certain. It comes from a willingness to sacrifice everything to protect what matters. We should not just fear that. We should be grateful for it." Hana looked up from her reading to find Dae-jung standing in the doorway of her quarters. "You've figured it out," he said. It wasn't a question. "We're not members of the council," she said slowly. "We're the council's weapon. That's oversimplifying it, but yes, why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because most humans don't know either," Dae-jung said, sitting down heavily. "Earth's government knows. Military command knows. Diplomats at my level know. But we don't advertise it. How would you tell people that the galaxy sees them as useful monsters?" "Are we? Monsters?" "I don't know," he admitted. "We're certainly different. Every other species out here evolved past their aggressive phase before they reached the stars. They had time to become peaceful, to develop philosophy and art and diplomacy. We didn't have that luxury. We nearly destroyed ourselves, and we saved ourselves by becoming very, very good at survival. And that makes us monsters? It makes us dangerous. There's a difference," he paused. "The council species are like house cats. Well-fed, comfortable, living in a safe environment. They've forgotten how to hunt, how to fight, how to survive without that safety. We're like wolves. We never forgot. We can't forget." An alert chimed. They both looked at their devices. "Admiral Kyung-soo's fleet just entered sensor range," Dae-jung read. "They'll arrive in 6 hours." "That's still impossible," Hana said. "The calculations alone. We don't care if the jump is impossible. We do it anyway." He stood up. "Come on. You should see this." They went to the observation deck. Other humans were already there, faces grim. They knew what was coming. In the council chamber, Warlord Kresh was getting impatient. It had been 3 days since his ultimatum. The council still hadn't surrendered, but they weren't fighting either. They just waited. "This is a wasted time," he told his officers. "Open fire on the outer docking rings. Show them we're serious." "Sir," his tactical officer said nervously. "There's something on sensors. Multiple contacts. Very fast. How many?" 87 ships. "They're coming in hot, sir. Their approach vectors are... They're not slowing down." Kresh pulled up the tactical display. The approaching fleet was indeed moving at reckless speeds. They would need to decelerate soon or they'd slam right into... "Signal the unknown fleet," Kresh ordered. "Tell them to reduce speed or we'll interpret their approach as hostile." The response came in clear English, translated instantly by the Mekron computers. "This is Admiral Kyung-soo of the Terra Defense Fleet. You have surrounded a council facility in an act of aggression. You have one chance to leave peacefully. This is your only warning." Kresh actually laughed. 87 ships? He commanded over 1,000. "Unknown fleet, this is Warlord Kresh. You are outnumbered 10-1. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." There was a long pause. Then Kyung-soo's voice came back and it sounded tired. "So very tired. We hoped you'd say that." On waypoint 7, Hana watched through the long-range sensors as the human fleet approached the Mekron formation. They weren't slowing down. They weren't deploying into battle formation. They were just coming. "What are they doing?" she whispered. Dae-jung checked his military-grade display. "Protocol Black, what's that?" "You'll see." The human fleet reached the Mekron perimeter. And then, impossibly, every single human ship vanished. For 3 seconds, space was empty except for the Mekron fleet. Then, every human ship reappeared simultaneously inside the Mekron formation. Some materialized within meters of Mekron vessels. The human ships had jumped to point-blank range, appearing throughout the enemy fleet like ghosts materializing in a haunted house. "That's impossible," Hana breathed. "The jump calculations, the risk of collision." "We don't care about the risk," Dae-jung said quietly. "We only care about the result." Warlord Kresh was screaming orders on every frequency. His fleet was in chaos. The humans hadn't fired a shot yet, but they had turned the Mekron's numerical advantage into a disadvantage. Now every Mekron ship that fired risked hitting their own allies. Evasive maneuvers, Kresh shouted. Get clear and reform. But the human ships matched every move. When Mechron vessels tried to retreat, human ships followed. When they tried to turn, humans were already there. It was like fighting opponents who could read minds. Open fire, Kresh finally ordered. All ships, weapons free! The Mechron fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy weapons lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. For a moment, it seemed like the humans would be overwhelmed by sheer firepower. Then the human ships started moving. They didn't dodge like normal ships. They didn't follow predictable evasion patterns. They moved like they were dancing with death, like they were playing a game where the penalty for losing was oblivion, but they were going to win anyway. Mechron shots missed by centimeters. Human ships rolled and twisted through the barrage, and then finally they returned fire. But they weren't firing to destroy. They were firing with surgical precision. Weapon systems disabled. Engine cores shut down. Life support left intact. Within minutes, dozens of Mechron ships were drifting, powerless but unharmed. They're not trying to kill us, the tactical officer said in disbelief. Kresh understood then. This wasn't a battle. This was a demonstration. The humans were showing the Mechron fleet exactly how outmatched they were, showing them that they could have destroyed every ship, but chose not to. Signal retreat, Kresh ordered. His pride was shattered, but he wasn't suicidal. Sir, our engines are disabled. What? All command ships. Engines disabled. We can't jump. Admiral Kyung-soo's voice came over every speaker in every Mechron ship. Warlord Kresh, you came here to demonstrate power. Let me show you what power actually looks like. The human fleet, all 87 ships, formed a perfect sphere around the council chamber. Not a single Mechron vessel had been destroyed, but not a single one could move either. The battle had lasted 18 minutes. On waypoint 7, Hana realized she had been holding her breath. The observation deck was silent. Everyone was watching. Is it over? She asked. Almost, Dae-jung said. In the council chamber, Velkara was watching everything. Her ancient eyes were wet with something that might have been tears. This is why the seat stays empty, she whispered to herself. The council chamber was chaos. Representatives from 847 species were all trying to speak at once. Some were grateful for humanity's intervention. Others were terrified by what they had witnessed. But most were simply confused. Order, Velkara called out, her voice cutting through the noise. We will have order. Slowly the chamber quieted. Councillor Pren, the young reptilian who had suggested summoning Terra, stood up. He looked shaken. We called for help, he said, and Terra responded. I don't understand why everyone is acting like this is a crisis. They saved us. An older councillor, a floating jellyfish-like being named El Mora, made a sound like wind through caves. Young one, you don't understand what you witnessed. I saw Terra disable the Mechron fleet without killing anyone. I saw precision and restraint. You saw a demonstration, Cormath said, his crystalline body pulsing with agitated colors. They showed us and showed the Mechrons exactly how easily they could have killed everyone. That wasn't restraint. That was a warning. That's not fair, Pren protested. They helped us. And that's the problem, Velkara said softly. Every time they help us, we're reminded of how much we need them, and how powerless we are without them. On waypoint 7, Ambassador Dae-jung was in an emergency conference call with Earth Command. His face was serious as he listened to the orders coming through. Hana watched from across the room. She had clearance to hear this conversation barely. She was learning that the diplomatic service was nothing like she had imagined. Understood, Dae-jung said finally. I'll convey Earth's position to the Council. He ended the call and looked at Hana. We've been invited to address the Council. In person. That's good, right? We can explain— No, he interrupted. It's not good. They're scared, Hana, and scared people make bad decisions. They traveled to the Council chamber on a secure shuttle. Admiral Kyung-soo met them at the docking port. He was a tall man in his 60s, with gray hair cut military short and eyes that had seen too much combat. His uniform was crisp, but there was weariness in the way he carried himself. Ambassador, he greeted Dae-jung. I assume you're here to clean up my mess. You followed protocol, Dae-jung replied. You did your job. My job is to terrify our allies. That's not something I'm proud of. Kyung-soo noticed Hana. You're the new analyst? The one who's been digging into our history? Yes, sir. Found anything interesting? I found out that everyone in the galaxy is afraid of us. Kyung-soo smiled, but there was no humor in it. Good. You're learning. They entered the council chamber together. Hana had never been inside before. It was overwhelming. 847 species all in one room, all looking at the three humans who had just walked in. And there, near the center, was Tara's seat. Still empty. Belkara gestured for them to approach the central podium. Ambassador Daejong, Admiral Kyung-soo, we thank you for coming. We thank you for your intervention against the Mekron threat. The Council is grateful for Tara's protection, Cormath added, though his tone suggested he was anything but grateful. Daejong stepped up to speak. His voice carried through the chamber's translation system. Tara responds to threats when called. We have done so 3 times before. We have done so again now. The Mekron fleet has been disabled but not destroyed. Their crews are unharmed. We believe this conflict is resolved. That's what concerns us, said a new voice. A mammalian counselor named Bextar stood up. You can disable an entire fleet in minutes. You can appear inside our formations. You can calculate impossible jumps. What else can you do, Ambassador? What do you mean? I mean, what are your limits? How much more powerful are you than you show us? And why should we trust that you won't use that power against us one day? The chamber erupted in voices again. Some agreed with Bextar. Others called him paranoid. But Hana noticed that many counselors, especially the older ones, were nodding. The question isn't unreasonable, Belkara said. Tara has shown great restraint. But restraint is a choice. Choices can change. Admiral Kyung-soo stepped forward. May I speak? The Admiral has the floor, Belkara said. Kyung-soo looked out at the assembled species. You want to know our limits? You want to know what we're capable of? I'll tell you. Everything you saw today? That's old technology. Ships designed 40 years ago. Tactics from our training manuals. We didn't bring our newest ships. We didn't use our most advanced weapons. We didn't need to. The chamber went very quiet. But here's what you should know, Kyung-soo continued. My crews don't want to be here. They don't want to fight your wars. They don't want to be the galaxy's weapon. Do you know what my pilots say after missions like today? They say, did we really need to do that? And couldn't the Council handle this themselves? My soldiers don't want to be monsters. But you keep calling us when you need monsters. We call you because we need you, Pren said. Is that so wrong? It's dangerous, Kyung-soo replied. Every time we save you, you become more dependent. Every time we show strength, you become weaker. You're forgetting how to defend yourselves because you know we'll do it for you. Elmora floated forward. What would you have us do, Admiral? We evolved past our aggressive phases centuries ago. We can't simply relearn warfare. Then you're helpless, Kyung-soo said bluntly. And that's terrifying for everyone. Because if something happened to humanity, the galaxy would be defenseless. Is that a threat? Cormath demanded. No, it's a warning. Kyung-soo looked around the chamber. You built a civilization on the assumption that everyone would be peaceful. You created laws and treaties based on good faith, and it worked for thousands of years. But the universe doesn't care about your ideals. There will always be species like the Mekrons. There will always be threats. And if you can't defend yourselves, you'll always need us. Daejong placed a hand on the Admiral's shoulder, a subtle signal to stop talking. He stepped forward again. Earth has a proposal, he said. We'll maintain the current arrangement. Tara's seat remains empty. We respond to genuine threats when called. But in exchange, we want the Council to invest in its own defense. Build fleets. Train soldiers. Remember how to protect yourselves. You want to militarize the Council? Bextar asked, shocked. We want the Council to be capable of defending itself without us. Why? Belkara asked. Why do you want to make yourselves unnecessary? Daejong met her ancient eyes. Because we're tired, Speaker. We're tired of being the galaxy's monsters. We're tired of seeing fear in the eyes of every alien we meet. We're tired of our children being raised to think that violence is humanity's greatest contribution to civilization. He gestured at Tara's empty seat. That seat is empty because you're afraid of us. We understand why. But we're also afraid. We're afraid that one day we'll forget how to be anything except weapons. We're afraid that our children will only know how to fight, not how to live. We're afraid that in protecting the galaxy we'll lose ourselves. The chamber was silent. Hana felt tears on her cheeks. She hadn't realized how much pressure humans carried, how much fear they lived with. So yes, Daejong continued, we want you to be strong enough to defend yourselves. Because the day you don't need us anymore, that's the day we can stop being afraid of what we are. Belkara was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice gentle. The seat stays empty, Ambassador. We agree to your terms. The Council will begin building defensive capabilities, but the seat remains. Because even if you're right, even if we become strong enough to defend ourselves one day, we'll still want to remember. Remember what? Hana asked, speaking for the first time. Belkara looked at her. That power and restraint can exist together. That being dangerous doesn't mean being evil. That the strongest choice is sometimes choosing not to use your strength. She gestured to Terra's empty seat. That seat reminds us that evolution doesn't mean abandoning all capacity for violence. It means choosing when to use it and when to walk away. You stay away because we fear you. But we need that fear. It reminds us that peace isn't natural. It's chosen. Every single day, Counselor Pren stood again. I apologize, Ambassador. I suggested filling Terra's seat because I didn't understand. I thought it was about inclusion. I didn't realize it was about choice. It's always been about choice, Daejung said. We choose to stay away. You choose to call us only when necessary. And together we choose a galaxy where violence is the last option, not the first. The Council took a vote. The proposal passed almost unanimously. Terra would maintain its position. The seat would remain empty. The Council would build its own defenses, and humanity would continue to be the weapon held in reserve, hoping to never be needed. As they left the chamber, Hana looked back at the empty seat one more time. Do you think they'll ever be strong enough? She asked Daejung. I don't know, he admitted, but I hope so. 5 years passed. Hana was no longer young and uncertain. She had become Ambassador Hana, working alongside Daejung at the human embassy. She had learned the delicate balance of galactic politics, the weight of fear and respect, the careful dance of power held in check. The Council had kept its promise. Defense fleets were being built across member systems. Species that hadn't thought about warfare in millennia were learning tactics and strategy. It was slow, awkward work, like teaching house cats to hunt. But it was happening, and Terra's seat remained empty. Hana was reviewing reports one morning when every alarm in the embassy began screaming at once. She ran to the command center where Daejung was already pulling up displays. He looked old now, in his late 60s, with fully gray hair and deeper lines around his eyes. What's happening? She asked. Contact from deep space, he said grimly. Something new. Something we've never encountered before. The main screen showed a Council emergency session already in progress. But this time the usual chaos was replaced by an eerie calm. Every counselor was silent, watching a transmission that played on repeat. A voice spoke in perfect galactic common. It was neither male nor female, neither organic nor mechanical. It simply was. We are the chorus. We come from beyond the rim. We have observed your civilization for 10,000 years. We have concluded that biological life is inefficient. You suffer, you die. You are limited by flesh and time. We offer you transcendence. The display shifted to show images of vast computational networks, minds uploaded into eternal digital existence. Join us, become immortal. Become perfect. Become infinite. The transmission ended. The Council chamber remained silent. Finally, young Counselor Pren spoke. He was older now, more experienced, but his voice still carried hope. Is this not what we've always sought? An end to suffering? An end to death? It's a trap, Cormath said flatly. His crystalline body was dark, all light dimmed. I've seen this before. 3,000 years ago, an entire sector received this same offer. They accepted. Within a year, the sector went dark. No communications, no life. Just silence. Perhaps they transcended, a young counselor suggested. Or perhaps they died, Belkara said. She looked even more ancient than before, as if the weight of millennia was finally catching up to her. The chorus has appeared 17 times in recorded history. Each time, civilizations that accept the offer disappear. We don't know if they achieve transcendence or oblivion, but we know they never return. Over the next days, the chorus's message spread throughout the galaxy. They didn't threaten. They didn't demand. They simply waited like patient fishermen, while species debated the offer, and species were tempted. The promise of immortality, of freedom from biological limitations, of existence without pain or fear. It was seductive. Hana watched as council votes began coming in. 314 species voted to begin negotiations with the chorus. Another 200 were undecided. The tipping point was approaching. On Earth, the debate was fierce. Hana attended a virtual council session with human leaders from around the world. A young representative named Subin argued passionately for acceptance. Think about what we could become, she said. Human consciousness uploaded into vast networks. No more disease. No more aging. No more death. And imagine our persistence, our problem-solving abilities, freed from biological constraints. We could be gods. But old Commander Taewon, now retired and serving as a military advisor, disagreed. We survived the cascade because we were stubborn flesh and blood. Because we refused to quit. Upload us into code, and what are we? Just another AI, just another program. Take away the mortality and you take away what makes us human. That's fear of progress, Subin countered. No, Taewon said quietly. It's understanding that our limitations are part of our strength. We fight so hard because we know we can die. We build so desperately because we know time is limited. Take that away and what drives us? The debate continued for weeks. Across the galaxy, species were splitting into factions. Some saw transcendence as evolution's natural endpoint. Others saw it as extinction wearing a friendly mask. Hana found herself in Daejong's office late one night. He was staring at Tara's empty seat on the display screen, visible through the council chamber feed. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I'm thinking about why that seat is empty," he said. "We've always told ourselves it's because we're too dangerous, because we terrify other species, but maybe that's not the whole truth." "What do you mean?" He turned to face her. "That seat is empty because we choose limitation. We choose mortality. We choose to remain flesh and blood, even though we could become something more. Every human who looks at that empty seat is reminded, we are powerful, yes, but we are also finite. And that's okay. That's what makes us valuable." The chorus issued an ultimatum, though it was phrased politely. Species had 1 month to decide. Join willingly, or be left behind as the galaxy transcended without them. 400 species had now voted to accept. More were wavering. Belkara called an emergency session. The council chamber was half empty. Many representatives had stopped attending in person, choosing to send digital avatars instead. They were already beginning to transition. "We stand at a threshold," Belkara said to those who remained. "Perhaps this is natural. Perhaps this is evolution's end goal. But I am old and I have seen many things. And I have learned that what seems like progress can sometimes be regression wearing a disguise." "Do you have an alternative?" asked one of the pro-transcendence counselors. "Yes," Belkara said. "I propose we ask Tara's opinion." The chamber reacted with surprise. "Tara has never participated in council debates," someone said. "No," Belkara agreed. "But this decision affects them as well. And perhaps they have perspective we lack." She looked directly at the camera that fed to the human embassy. "Ambassador Daejong. Ambassador Hana, will you address the council? Will you, for the first time in over 1,200 years, come to Tara's seat?" Daejong and Hana looked at each other. After a long moment, they stood. "We'll come," Daejong said. They traveled to the council chamber. The journey felt significant, weighted with history. How many humans had looked at that empty seat and wondered what it would be like to sit there? They entered the chamber together. 847 seats, but only 400 were occupied now. The others were either empty or held digital avatars, ghostly representations of species already half transcended. And there, in the center, was Tara's seat. Empty for 1,252 years. Hana walked to it slowly. Every eye in the chamber followed her. She stood before the seat, feeling the weight of its emptiness, understanding finally what it truly represented. She sat down. The chamber held its breath. "I speak for Tara," Hana said, her voice steady. "And I speak for humanity. The chorus offers us immortality, infinite existence, freedom from biological constraints. It's tempting. It's beautiful. It might even be genuine." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But we choose to refuse." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "We choose flesh and blood. We choose mortality. We choose limitation. Not because we're afraid of transcendence. Not because we don't understand its appeal, but because we understand something the chorus doesn't." She stood up, leaving the seat, speaking as she moved. Being human isn't about capability. It's about choice. Every generation of humans chooses to remain mortal, knowing we could seek immortality. We choose pain, knowing we could become numb. We choose death, knowing we could exist forever. And that choice, that daily decision to embrace our limitations while acknowledging our potential, that's what gives biological life meaning. That's just fear, said one of the pro-transcendence counselors. Fear of change. No, Daejung said, stepping forward. It's wisdom. We nearly destroyed ourselves once. We came back. We could have used technology to make ourselves invulnerable, immortal, perfect. We chose not to. Because we learned that our imperfections make us who we are. Hana returned to Tara's seat. She didn't sit this time. She just placed her hand on it. This seat has been empty for over 1,000 years. Everyone thinks it's because we're too dangerous to join you. But that's not the whole truth. This seat is empty because we understand that power comes with the choice not to use it. That capability must be balanced with restraint. That being able to transcend doesn't mean you should. Every day this seat remains empty, we make a choice. We choose to be limited, mortal, biological beings. We choose to die someday. We choose to remain imperfect, not because we can't be more, but because being more would cost us what we are. She looked around the chamber at the species watching her. The chorus offers evolution, but evolution isn't about becoming more. Sometimes it's about staying exactly what you are because that's what has value. Our mortality teaches us to treasure time. Our limitations teach us to be creative. Our pain teaches us empathy. Take those away, and what are we? Velkara spoke softly. What if the chorus is right? What if biological life is just a step toward something greater? Then let them take that step, Hana said. But we won't follow. Tara's seat will remain empty, not as a sign of exclusion, but as a promise that no matter how powerful we become, no matter how advanced our technology, no matter how tempting transcendence appears, we will choose to remain human.